has a very interesting history. But yeah, that's the music industry, basically.
Wow, amazing. Well, I'm. This has been really, really awesome and great to schmooze with you, and I learned a ton. Just kind of as I bring this interview to a close, I always like to touch on a couple things that are kind of outside the technical scope. Creative energies. Do you do anything to kind of, we all have days where we're pumped to get in the studio and do our work, but then there's days where we're less excited. How do you stay creatively motivated to do the work that you do? Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's, I don't know, it could be anything.
Well, if I really don't feel like doing things, I'll just not work if I don't feel like it. Unless I absolutely have to, unless there's something that absolutely has to be done. But that doesn't happen very often, honestly. Most days, I might have some initial thing. I don't want to listen to, this is going to get really loud. I don't want to listen to, I might have some initial thing, but then it's jumping into a swimming pool. Once you get in, it's fine. Yeah. So that's usually the way it is. And then some days, if you've got other things happening in your life, somebody's sick or your pet's dying or whatever it is, then maybe you don't feel like doing anything. And so then it's not, you want to avoid working on people's music when you're not 100%, honestly, because they've spent a lot of time and money, usually, and sometimes they've worked on these things for years. And so you don't want to be in charge of somebody's career, wishing that you could be in bed asleep or something instead. That's not a good situation. So really try to avoid that.
Yeah. Do you have any things that you do to kind of keep you energized, fresh, excited?
Well, like I said, every once in a while I buy some new gear. That's the main thing. It's mainly just, it's this whole thing. I think the main thing about it is that you're basically, especially these days, there's a tremendous amount of music being released. And you're just trying to give somebody the best possible chance that you can of succeeding in what they're doing. So that's really what you're focused on, is how, let's kind of help this person to really make some kind of a statement that will help them. So that's the kind of fun part of it, really, is just sort of doing that and sending it to them, and then hopefully they don't say, I hate it, do it again. Or else the old, we've decided to go in a different direction email that you get sometimes. When you've totally freaked somebody out. But no, seriously though, that's the thing. It's like you kind of have to, everything you work on, no matter what it is, really, you have to find the beauty in it.
Yeah.
And bring that out as much as you can, just kind of, usually I find myself thinking mostly about the vocal, honestly, because, well, that's what most people listen to, honestly. They listen to the words and the lyrics and the voice. And also that's what you hear if you're in go into a restaurant and everybody's talking, you hear the vocal, you hear the snare drum, you might hear a little bit of bass, and that's about it. The rest of it's like filler, really. People aren't going to pay that much attention to it most of the time. So, yeah, you really want to make sure the vocal is as engaging as it can possibly be, which is actually what the tube stuff is really good for. Like 8, 10, 12K on the Pultec will give you this kind of, well, it's tube distortion, really, on the vocal. That's why people use them to record vocals as well. But that sound is really, it's a beautiful sound. It's beautiful. It does a beautiful job on vocals. Maybe the rest of the music gets a little squished together, perhaps, maybe not. But the tube thing is mainly that's what people use the Pultecs for in recording, is vocals and drums, or bass as well, I guess. Guitar, you could use anything, but that's what it is. It's kind of like it's distortion, actually.
Yeah.
a very pleasing kind of soft tubey distortion thing on the vocal is so you can so basically you'll see you'll get something like it could be like country music or something like that. And you can really make the vocal pop, and you send it back to them and they're like, yeah, that sounds really good. But in reality, it's mostly the vocal that sounds really good.
That's what people pay attention to.
The vocalist is usually in charge of the gig. So if you make the vocal sound good, they'll be like, yeah, okay, that's it. The guitarist might be, yeah, my guitar, but who cares? It's like, no, actually, they make everything sound good, really. But mainly, I'd say the vocal is the
That's
thing.
what you're listening for. That's like your litmus test of, is this a good master? Does the vocal sound better than it did or not?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of times that's really what I'll mostly focus on. Can you hear all the lyrics, or at least stand a chance of hearing the lyrics? That's big too. A lot of times I'll just make the vocal louder, honestly.
With like a mid-side or something.
Oh, well, just like, a little tiny EQ boost at like 1.7 or 1.5 or something like that. Just pick the vocal out of the mix and you'll be able to hear it better. Yeah, so that's, I think...
That's the secret to success as a mastering engineer is...
Well,
I mean, I'm
honestly,
exaggerating,
yeah,
but
it's in a certain kind of music, yeah, definitely. I mean, it was just basically what I mostly work on is pop music, really. That's a very important thing. So if you can get a little more juice out of the vocal, it's probably going to be a good thing.
The vocal is king/queen. And kind of like you were kind of basically saying was that, it's a service industry and you just need to deliver that to the artists that you're working for.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's a really great piece of advice for everybody at every stage of the production process. Make sure the vocal is sounding good and complimenting the singer. Amazing. So I just have one last question for you, and then I'll let you get back to many records that I'm sure you have to master today. So I just I asked this question to everybody on the show, and you could answer it in one of two ways. But basically, looking back on your journey, was there something that you did or didn't do that you'd want to impart on your earlier self and be like, John, keep at that. It's what you need to do to get to where you want to go. Or maybe it's, John, stop doing that. It's holding you back. Or maybe it's just like a piece of advice to the kids up and coming today that, would love to be doing something that you're doing today in their future.
Well, I think probably the most important, or one of the most important things is to be a good person, honestly. Well, the mastering engineers worldwide thing is not too bad, actually, but there's a lot of people that have a really terrible attitude towards the clients and the music that they're working on and stuff. Like, this is crap. It's too loud. It's like, what are you sending me this thing for? Don't be that person. Yeah, be a little bit, have some humility about what you're doing. Don't be like lecturing people, and you're it's like the whole thing about, we were talking about the explaining about the loudness thing in Spotify. It's like, understand who you're talking to. There are people that are, these days artists have a lot to deal with. They've got to be like an actor and a comedian on TikTok. They have to, like, the labels don't do anything for them until you've already done it, basically. It's like, it's a lot of stuff. You think about, then you're going to start talking about Spotify normalization to them. No, I don't think that's a good idea. They've got enough to worry about without Spotify is going to turn your stuff down, It's like, no, don't. It's like, just be aware of who you're talking to and be aware of your place in the thing, and just kind of, basically what and the main piece of advice that I have is that really you end up working with your friends. It's not like you go to a party and you say, I worked on this record, and everybody says, oh, let's work together. Well, that does happen, I suppose. But usually when that happens, you never hear from them again. It's basically you work on something and you have emails with people, and sometimes you never even meet them, but you kind of develop a relationship, and then they send you stuff and you recommend them for projects that people ask you, and you kind of build up a network of people, and eventually the network gets big enough that it'll support you. You'll support each other, basically, is what it is. And so it's not really a marketing thing, this business. I mean, some people approach it like that. It's not really, pestering people with the Facebook Messenger. Hey, can I master your record? That's not really what we do. We just keep working, and then you get better at it. I think I've gotten a lot better in the last several years.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Better. You keep getting better, and you you develop. It's the business part of it is about relationships, and so you'll find the people that you're supposed to work with. You'll sort of come together with them, but it'll take a while. It takes maybe it takes 10 or 15 years to kind of build up enough people that, you're not going to run out of work one day.
That seems to be the number, right? 10 years is basically what it takes, I think. And everyone I've spoken to, it seems like that's about where it averages out, about a decade.
Yeah, well, it takes about a decade to get good at
that's
anything,
also true.
Really.
It's like you have to have the patience to get good enough and to stick out years of famine to get to the place of...
Yes, you have to be in deep denial about the reality of your situation to continue doing it. That's the truth of the matter, actually.
I think that's kind of what makes audio engineers special, is our tenacity to just keep at it no matter what and keep getting better. And like you said, I feel like I've gotten so much better in the last few years. I think everybody I've interviewed just is always striving to get better. And that never ends. And it's a lifelong pursuit.
It's the same. It's the same thing. That's what sports people are always saying. They're always trying to get better.
Yeah. Until their bodies cave in.
Their bodies break down, and then you can't get better. But it's kind of like, there's kind of like and it's the same thing, I guess, with any profession, really. There's kind of like this actually guy that I worked with that used to play in the NFL described there's like an elevator coming up and an elevator going down, and you sort of you start with a lot of physical ability, and then the mental ability comes up, but the physical ability diminishes, and then at a certain point you're right there. You've got the mental and the physical, and then the physical goes down. Your understanding of the game continues to go up, but your ability to, do the physical part of it goes down. So there's a point at which they meet, and that's kind of when you're really in the zone. So you could apply that to probably a lot of professions, actually.
That's a really interesting, analogy. I have to think about that. Yeah. The sweet spot, maybe for an athlete is 30, and for an audio engineer, maybe it's 45 or who knows, 60.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a much slower elevator ride for us, hopefully.
Well, I mean, Bernie's still over there. Bernie's in his 80s.
No way.
He's still over there cutting lacquers. So,
that's amazing.
You can keep going for a good long time.
Yeah. I think just imagine what Finneas is going to do with, how long he's been in the game and how young he is and what he's already accomplished.
Yeah, Finneas is an interesting chap, actually. I think part of their success is the fact that they were homeschooled. They didn't get the crap beaten out of them by the education system and get thoroughly disillusioned, and like most of us do.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, they're just like, hey, let's do this, and they do it, and they don't know really any...
They don't have the imposter syndrome on the same level that us regular schooled people do, maybe.
Right. I think that there's a lot to that, actually.
Wow, that is wild. That's I never thought about it like that. That's really interesting. Yeah. So we got a lot of again, also with just being freelance audio engineers, breaking out of those kinds of mental headspaces of I can't do this because I'm not this, or and you just you just have to get through that and keep at it long enough, like we, like you said, to find that success. So yeah. Well, John, this has been such a pleasure for me to get to meet you and schmooze with you and learn from you. I really appreciate it. I'll link to your socials and